Brother, I think one of the worst feelings is quitting something. You tell yourself, this time I'm serious. You buy the equipment, you watch the videos, you make a plan, you imagine how much better your life is going to be. Then 2 weeks later, you quit. Now you're sitting there feeling guilty, wondering if maybe you're just the type of person that never finishes anything. I know that feeling because for years, I thought something was wrong with me. I've quit more projects, hobbies, and goals than I can count. And strangely enough, I don't regret most of them. In fact, some of the best decisions I've made were quitting. Let me explain. When I was 23, I became obsessed with day trading. I was convinced that was going to become my future. I spent countless hours watching videos, studying charts, and trying to figure it all out. Then eventually, I quit. A year later, I got obsessed with wood carving. I bought the knives, I bought the wood, and I started making things. Then eventually, I quit that too. Then I got interested in building archery equipment out of PVC. And for a while, I thought that was going to become my thing. Then eventually, I quit that too. And for a while, I looked at all of this as evidence that I lacked discipline. But eventually, I realized something, that not all quitting is the same. There's a huge difference between quitting because something is difficult and quitting because something is no longer right for you. Most people treat those as if they're identical. They're not. We've been taught a very simple story: starting equals good, quitting equals bad. But real life is more complicated than that, because every time you say yes to something, you say no to something else. Your time is limited. Your attention is limited. Your energy is limited. You can't fully commit to everything, which means quitting isn't always a failure. Sometimes it's simply making room. Now, to be clear, there are definitely bad reasons to quit. If you quit every single time something becomes uncomfortable, that's probably fear. If you quit because you're avoiding hard work, that's probably fear too. And if that's happening, quitting is not helping you. But that's not what I'm talking about. I'm talking about the moment you realize, I actually don't want this anymore. Not because it's difficult, not because it's impossible, but because it genuinely doesn't interest you, or because it's not worth your time. That's a different situation. I think the real reason people struggle with this is because they confuse motivation with commitment. Motivation feels incredible. When you first start something, everything is exciting. You imagine your future, you imagine the results. You imagine the version of yourself that you're going to become. But eventually that excitement fades. And then you reach that part that actually matters: the work, the repetition, the consistency. And this is where things get interesting. Because once the emotional high disappears, you finally get to see whether you actually care about the thing or not. Sometimes the answer is yes. Sometimes the answer is no. And that's valuable information. There's a concept from a book called The Dip by Seth Godin that I think about often. The idea is that some pursuits are worth pushing through the difficult middle. Others are dead ends. The challenge is learning the difference. Because if something is genuinely a dead end for you, quitting sooner can actually be the smart decision. Think about it. What happens when you force yourself to continue something you no longer care about? You stop improving, you procrastinate, you resent doing it, you do it half-heartedly, and eventually, you quit anyway. Except now you've spent 6 months or 6 years trying to convince yourself to care. One thing that helped me was realizing quitting something doesn't erase everything you learned. When I quit wood carving, I didn't lose everything. I learned patience. I learned how to work with my hands. I learned how different tools function. I learned what kind of activities naturally hold my attention. Those lessons stayed with me. The same thing happened with every other hobby I quit. The project ended, but the learning did not. And honestly, that's why I think people should feel less afraid to try things. Because sometimes the purpose of trying something isn't to succeed at it. Sometimes the purpose is discovering that you don't actually want it. That's still progress. Trying wood carving, trying archery, trying day trading, all of those experiences taught me something about myself. They helped me figure out what I enjoy, what I value, what holds my attention. And you can only learn those things through experimentation. I think this is where a lot of people get stuck. They become so terrified of becoming a quitter that they never try anything. They stay frozen and overthink and wait for certainty. But all of that comes after action. You learn who you are by testing things, not by thinking about them. Some things will fail, some won't last, some will surprise you completely. And that's normal. That's how self-awareness works. The guy who quit day trading eventually found a career. The guy who quit wood carving learned that he likes to build things. The guy who quit building archery equipment learned that he really enjoys working with his hands. Looking back, quitting was not the mistake. The mistake would have been forcing myself to stay. So here's the lesson. Don't quit because something is difficult. But don't keep doing something that no longer matters to you just because you're afraid of being called a quitter. Sometimes quitting is avoidance, and sometimes quitting is growth. And the faster you learn the difference, the faster you'll learn the things that are actually worth committing your life to.